Ready.
So today we are going to be planning for Skills 9 unit preparation. So we've already filled in the sheet. Everybody contributed to the sheet, to the document, and so now we're just going to kind of go over it, and we'll add to or throw out some ideas of what we might want to add to our preparation. So the first one, Jenny?
What content is included in the unit, and how does this content build on past units? So how do the lessons build on each other within this unit and build on previous learning? And how do you think this is going to prepare us, the students, for future units?
So in previous units, they only had to do like lowercase letters. Now we're doing capital letters. And they're having to do corresponding. So,
In forming those letters, we're kind of bringing back the diagonal lines, horizontal lines, and all of that. So just bringing all of that vocabulary back in.
Also added, like the warm-up this time is going back to reviewing the oral blending. So and they use their counting the sounds and then blending them together. I like that because they like to do the movements.
Do you guys feel like, I feel like my kids are really ready for dibbles. Like as we do these every day and we practice and we review and re-review, I feel like we're going to see some really good strong dibble scores here at the end of the year. And I'm really excited to see that. So that's next week. We're also going to be doing, this whole unit is only tricky words. There are no new decodable words for this unit. So I'm just kind of reviewing the decodable words and then making sure that we hit on all of those tricky words. And it also says in the book that the tricky parts of the word are underlined. And I know that we all know this, but it's super specific about, in the plans in the book, what is to be underlined and what you can circle as decodable. So my kids are really responding to that.
Mm-hmm.
They like to see, and they always ask, what is tricky and what is decodable. So it's all tricky words.
And even when you're using the digital component, it has it underlined, and so
Yes.
they've really been
Yes.
noticing that too. It's good.
And it's in the workbook, and it's also in the readers. It's all
Mhm.
underlined. And I read somewhere, I think I put it on here, that where is that on there? That it's underlined in the reader and in the workbook after the word has been introduced like 20 times. Did y'all read that in here? And I didn't realize that. I guess I might have skipped that over, but that's interesting because I guess after 20 times they've got it. So I thought that was pretty neat.
One of my students caught me where I had accidentally put it twice, like a word over here on the decodable, because I have a list of both of them. And they pointed that out yesterday, that I had, Miss Vanetta, you've got that one over here too, and I looked, and so I changed it, but it makes me feel good that they're noticing and watching and, checking me out too.
It just tells me that they're learning, they're learning the difference between those things. All right, so step 2.
what are the most important learnings of this unit? What are the essential understandings? And within that, it says, what will students learn in this unit? What is most important for students to accomplish? And what are the essential understandings?
I think one of the biggest things that I saw was students need to be able to recognize both upper and lowercase letters fluently, and be able to use those to make sounds while they're reading.
I had that, in addition to unknown vocabulary, punctuation marks
Yes.
are
Mhm.
big in this unit as part of the reading process.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to the punctuation yet, but there's specific lessons about punctuation. We've talked a lot about it with the readers and with the workbook pages, but I'm excited to get to that in the actual program.
I actually heard some of the kids reading the other day, and they were doing it with such,
Expression.
expression. It was so cute to hear them all doing it. So I'm glad that they're paying attention and notice that when they're reading too.
I've also noticed, you know, in years past, we've never really had a lot of text with quotation marks. And so it's exciting for me to see that they really understand what a quotation mark is. And I've even noticed in the reading that they change their voices. Like if it's Zach talking, they might sound like the boy, and if Anne's talking, they might, you know, try to sound like Anne, and then the mom and the dad. So I don't know, it's just
That
fun
comes
to
from
see.
you know?
Yes.
From you
Yes.
modeling that.
Well, and that's a good reader. That's part of fluency is to
Yes.
recognize that and follow along and make sure you're fluent in that. So that's pretty exciting about that. Also in this unit, there's story questions, which I like. And you know, there's been a lot of talk about TCAP the last couple weeks because a lot of kids have older siblings that are taking it, and so we call it TCAP practice in the class because they have to bubble in. You know, they think it's fun at this point. But not only are they doing multiple choice, but they're also having to write. And it's, you know, writing those, and you know, CKLA talks about you start with words and then you move to phrases and then you move to a sentence. And I feel like my kids really have a good understanding between a sentence and a phrase now after teaching all of these units. So that's pretty
And
exciting.
with that, what we're doing in CKLA Knowledge, it's helping them be able to write phrases and sentences to answer the questions with the lessons that we're doing, so.
It all goes together for sure. Is there one more question there, Lisa?
It just says in your own words, why does this content matter for students? And I have, students need to be able to recognize uppercase letters and their sounds in isolation and in reading text. So,
Anything else with that one?
I'm just glad that we're writing corresponding to text now in this part of the unit. Like it's good.
Yes. And we've always done it with knowledge, like we've been doing it with knowledge for a while, but now we're
Yes.
also seeing that in skills, so I think that's exciting.
And it's more with comprehension too, which
Yes.
is good, cause they either get it or they don't, and you can tell.
And it's what's neat is that they tell you in the book to let the kids have their reader as they're answering the questions. So a lot of mine, when they're answering the questions, they have their reader out there, and it's neat to see them looking back at the text to find information, because that's what they'll have. It's so important, especially for TCAP.
It's just,
So it's like we're almost just starting. I mean, it's simple, it might be one question, but like we're starting here, so that's really exciting to see. Yeah. All right, let's talk about assessments.
What will my students do in this unit to demonstrate progress towards the essential understandings and grade level standards? And then it just asks what assessments are in this unit.
Well, you've got all of your same formative assessments that we've done throughout the year where we teacher observation of the oral blending and the letter names and sounds when we're doing the cards and the discussion questions when we're reading the story.
And the discussion questions, you know, just help with checking comprehension. I love that because so many times, you know, they're not comprehending what they're reading, so this just helps us to know if they're understanding.
well, and too, if they're listening.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
they've got to be listening to know what the questions are. So, you know, if they're not listening, they're not getting it. So,
Well, and I feel like this kind of separates the men from the boys, if you wanna say that. But, you know, because when you ask a question as a large group, lots of times you call on one person and the others don't answer. So at least they have it in the workbook that they are actually doing their own work, and so you can see it in real time, and you can even I collect some of those papers to have for maybe report card assessments or something like that. It's a great way to, you know, check for that.
Well, speaking of report card, they have, you know, the end of the year, end of the unit assessments where they're assessing the tricky words and the writing of the lowercase and uppercase letters and that punctuation skill that we just learned.
and recognizing the association between the uppercase and lowercase, and making sure that they're
Yeah.
doing that. I know I still have some that are doing that B and D, you know, having a little trouble with that.
I've got a
Except
few too
yesterday,
that B and D
so.
reversal that are just
But also, going back to the lines, being specific and teaching right and left has been so helpful because, we talk a lot about the B goes to the right and the D goes to the left, and not all kids get that, but it's just about those specific lines and talking about that again. But I was looking through this, and on page 260, y'all wanna, I'll be honest, and I haven't used this year, but I think it would be a nice little something for us to use next year. And what you do is you check it at the beginning. It's got all of the words. What I don't love about it is it's got Dolce and Fry on two separate ones. 266 is the Fry. Because it is a lot, but I think that would be a great checklist to use to see what they know at the beginning, and then assess at the end of the unit again to see what they know at the end of the unit. So we'll need to maybe make a note of that and copy that off for next year to get started with that. I just thought that was a good assessment.
Be a good thing to add in step 4. So,
Step 4. Yes. Yeah. Oh, that is a good to copy that off. I'll do that now.
There's one more question. What do students need to know and be able to do for major assessments? Just recognizing those new tricky words and writing the uppercase letters and the lowercase letters and understanding their partner.
So how do the unit assessments connect to the essential understandings? Like when and how will you check on progress of these essential understandings?
Well, I think you have teacher observation every single day.
Yeah.
Like every single day you are assessing in one way or another, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah.
So those are those formative. And then, they have those great little assessments throughout the lessons. The quick checks, and we just did one this week about sight work, the tricky words, circle the word one and circle the word. So I think that's a great, something embedded in the actual lesson. So it's not anything extra that we have to do. It's not an extra assessment. It's just right in there in the lesson, which is really nice. And again, I pull those out and stack them up back here, and I'll use them for when I need them for report card testing.
How do these unit assessments build on skills students already have? What strengths will students need to build as they progress in the module?
Well, the assessments go back, some of it is review. It's not just current. Some of it is, it builds, so, they should be able to do fairly well, because it's kind of goes back and reviews other previous skills that we've done, and builds on that for what we're doing currently, so.
I mean, we do that throughout all the modules.
Yeah.
Like, you don't just teach those tricky words and stop. We are consistently reviewing them through all the units. And the same, with the letters and sounds. I mean, we're still doing those cards, now. And the blending.
And again, I think that's what's so great about this program. It is just constant. It is just review, add something new, but still review what you're doing. It's like we never, in past years, I would maybe teach something and then forget about it, like we moved on. But this doesn't allow us to do that. This allows us to it always revisits something, which I think is great. And the same with the Sounds First curriculum that we're doing, the little
Yes.
thing at the beginning of our lessons, that is just, we won't do something for a little bit, but in about a week or so, it'll pop back up, and I think that's made a huge
I
difference.
like how the warm-up changes
Yeah.
in each unit.
Mm-hmm.
My kids love the structure of it. My
Yes.
class is big on everything being structured, and I love that about this because it helps with classroom management too,
Yes. Yeah.
So the tricky words that we're learning right now are the question words, like where and when and stuff like that. And I've noticed how my kids are now noticing those in other places too. And now that they're having to answer those discussion questions on their own on those worksheets, now they want to read directions on other worksheets or other things that we do in the classroom, and they think they're really big stuff now because they can read their own directions. and I just think that's a neat progression.
Something else I read, and I think that I put it in here also, talking about directions, is that in the workbook, the directions are words that they can read. So so they should be able to read the directions in the workbook because they're the decodable words and the tricky words that we have learned. So I thought that that was pretty clever. Like until I read it in here, I didn't realize that that was the case, but I thought that that was pretty neat because then they take ownership of it and they're excited, and everybody wants to read the questions. So that's a neat thing too. All right, so we've talked about assessments, we've talked about why it's important now, so let's talk about what we need to do to get ready to teach the unit.
What else do I need to do to get ready to teach this unit? So we gotta look at the students' current knowledge and skills, so what do we think is gonna be the most challenging for this unit?
Skill gaps, ones that can and ones that can't.
Right.
There's, at this point, it's like you said, it separates,
Yeah.
so, for ones that struggle, like our Christopher and our Raylan and, they're not anywhere close to where some of the other kids are.
And that just goes along with the reinforcement, using that oral segmenting over and over and over again, and to help them bring with that too.
Do you feel like though, as a whole, that in general, your kids are farther along with this
yeah.
program than in the past? Like, even though they might not be where others are, like, I feel, because I have that same, I'm sure we all have that, but I feel like those kids that aren't exactly there, they're still much higher and stronger readers than readers of the past in kindergarten.
For sure.
Do you?
But I think that reflects on my teaching too. I mean, not like patting myself on the back, in the fact that we've taught it for a few years now, and I'm more comfortable.
Yes.
And with us doing these planning and stuff like that, and like you finding that page on 260, like now we have the time to go back and look at that stuff because we feel more comfortable, and I don't feel like I'm reading from the manual as much and stuff like that. And I know how to build upon skills now and push them a little further in skills. Like I feel like I can go off script just a little bit,
Cause you know what's coming up.
Yes.
Well, and two, it's all here for us. In the past, we've always had to supplement everything we did. We had to search for everything. We don't have to do that anymore. It's all
Right.
here. So that's made it a whole lot easier.
1,000%.
I mean,
There's no
it's
scramble.
just-
I'm not a researcher. I don't know. I don't know the science behind reading. Somebody does, and somebody, I think they
They
nailed
did
it.
really good.
Well, and
They
I think,
nailed it on the head.
it's really good about teaching the kids, well, and myself too, like I notice things more too, but my kids notice things, like because we talk about things in such details, like with the tricky words and stuff like that. Like the other day, we had a discussion because my kids noticed that every time R was behind a vowel, it made the sound. Like they already recognize bossy R. They haven't even been taught that skill yet. All because we were talking about double letter spellings, and we were talking about them, and like they just think more now, naturally, and I think that's pretty cool.
I agree, because I think we've given them the tools.
Yeah.
Like, we've given them that foundation that they have this basic, strong understanding, and now they're ready to just read and find all of the connections.
And Heidi, who couldn't speak English, can read some tricky words. And she can read stuff now. She can't always say what she's trying to say, like if you ask her a question, but when it comes to words, she can read them, which is really cool.
That's just because she had the whole language thing, so she was
Yes.
like
And she's so
7 steps
smart.
behind everybody. Yeah.
But I've noticed she can read stuff, she might not ever be able to verbalize things, but she can read words.
I've noticed too, just how much it's improved their writing.
Yes.
I love to do writing with them, and they're so excited. I have to sometimes tell them, put your notebook away, because they have a journal, and they'll just be out trying to do that during something else, and it's
Right.
because they're excited, because they can sound it out, and they've learned some of those rules
Right.
for tricky words, and so I love that part of
Well,
it.
and I think that goes back to the oral segmenting.
It does.
I mean,
Yeah,
really,
sure
like
does.
enforcing that every day and teaching them to tap out those sounds. I mean, for sure. And that's what I tell them when they're writing. I'm like, tap out your sounds and write these sounds as you hear it, and it's made a big difference.
And what a great problem to have,
Exactly.
that they want to
They
write
want
when
to
they're not
write.
supposed to. You gotta. I think that's
Especially when we
fabulous.
don't really have writing, a writing curriculum. I mean, this is writing,
Yes.
but you know, like in the past, we've had a writing curriculum and we felt like we needed to write more, that this doesn't have as much writing, cause just now it's more writing sentences. You know, I mean,
Right.
we've been writing words and phrases, but it's cool that they still want to write.
But they have the knowledge,
knowledge.
the good, strong, basic
Foundation.
foundational knowledge, and so now they just have to put it together.
Yes.
So that's really
Yeah.
exciting. I'm happy with our writing too.
Yes.
I'm really
Yes.
excited about that. All right.
Do y'all have any areas that you think we could spend more time on, or areas that we can go a little more quickly?
So I'm big on vocabulary. I spend a lot of time on vocabulary when,
Yeah.
when we do the readings, and before we introduce a new reader, there's always like 2 or 3 words, maybe a phrase, and I have printed off pictures and we take time to talk about the vocabulary. I feel that helps, you know, because like this week, the word was mast. Nobody knew what a mast was, so for me, I think it's important to take a little bit more time to talk about that vocabulary, that unknown vocabulary, and even the phrases. I forgot the one for the boat. It was, I don't know, getting ready to go. Can anybody remember what that phrase was for? I can't think of it right now, but just a phrase that people say all the time and kids might not be aware of. I just think that when you take a little bit more time up front to talk about vocabulary, whether it's unknown or even not unknown, I just feel like when they're reading, they're gonna grasp that reading and the text a lot better. So I feel like vocabulary is one thing where I slow down anyway.
Well, it also gives, you talk about vocabulary, there's multiple meanings.
Yes.
You know, and even on the paper, like their activity, it'll say, draw a picture to show one meaning. If there's multiple meanings, I have them draw a line down the middle of the box, and they've gotta show, if there's 2, they've gotta do both, cause I want them to be able to see.
Well, and right
know.
now, especially coming off of a post-COVID world, you know, like these kids don't, like some of them have maybe never been fishing or never seen a boat, or, you know, like vocabulary is huge.
And
Yes.
yesterday, especially like we talked about sand,
Yes.
you had to sand, so I was
Yes.
explaining to them, like, you have to use a tool that's kind of rough,
Rough.
like sandpaper, so on one side, they had to draw a picture of Dad sanding, and then we drew the picture of the sand on the beach. So they saw, but, and even one of them even said, and you know that sand is what glass is made of." So
See,
they,
that's making a connection.
they
Yeah,
did,
that's really good.
so it was, but yeah, I always, I mean, I know on that activity it says draw one meaning, but I wanted to be able to see,
Yes.
you know, multiple, so, you know, they know. If I say there's more than one meaning for this, they draw the line down the middle of the page, and that way they can,
You know, and I
Yes,
like those
so.
multiple meaning and CKLA knowledge too. Those
Yeah.
posters, the multiple meaning
Yeah.
posters, I think I like those, cause there's multiple meanings to words
Right.
and
And
phrases.
it's hard, you don't I don't realize, like you said, the vocabulary that they don't understand. Like that, you know, several times we did that lesson, they were like, what's a drill?
Yes.
You know, and I was trying to explain that, I said, wait a minute, I've got one over in my kitchen center, so I got it out, and I said, see, this is a drill, this is what he's using to fix the mast,
Yes.
you know? So yeah, I'm like you, that's spending that time on that, because then the papers that they worked on had all those vocabulary words.
Right.
And so,
Also, adding on to, and so I put that down here, I'm gonna
Mhm.
add that to that, cause I think that's a great idea because there are multiple meanings, but another thing that I noticed in this is my kids this year know what a noun is. You could ask any one of my kids, they know what a verb is, they know what an adjective is really well. I mean, I touched on those in the past, but every time that we do that workbook page where they have to illustrate a picture, it has a V and it has an N. So it's really exciting for me, like, and I can't wait until they go to first grade and they have a really true idea and understanding of what a noun and a verb is. And of course, we do that with knowledge too, but I think that
But it-
has been a big thing.
Right, it's embedded
It's embedded.
without you even knowing it, as opposed to having to do like a whole separate curriculum for it, like it's just embedded in there.
And so taking, like, so the drill, that can be a noun and a verb.
Right.
So we talked a lot about that. I mean, how neat is that? So that's something that you could also think of, okay, so on the right page, draw the noun, and on the left side, draw the verb. So I don't know, I just think that that's fun. They like to do that. But, you know, I
You
just
know,
feel
that's some of the things that we put into that preparation too. The practice, we could add that as
Yes,
well.
I'm gonna add that.
Oh, sorry.
And Chrissy even brought up one day, I wish there was a person here that gave you everything that you need to do ahead of time. This is a good time to be able to, have all that listed and more to it.
Right.
Is that that? Nothing else? Okay, so the last part of our planning, I just added all of the tricky words for each lesson, so you'll know when to teach those. Again, there's no decodable words, so we'll just be practicing. So yeah, and I think that Unit 10 has a combination of, it looks like 10 is all tricky too, so. But it's always interesting to me. I know Christy's gonna head up the pre-K night tomorrow night and tell them what to expect. And there's a lot of words. Like when you look at the word wall over there, and I really think that I've forgotten to add a couple, but it's a lot of words that the kids have to learn, more so than we've had to know in the past.
But it doesn't feel like it.
But it doesn't feel like it. That's the thing.
You know, Mary Sight came to my room
Yes.
yesterday because I had shared with her these sight word books that I had bought off Teachers Pet Teachers at one point or something. She said she wanted to use them with some of her intervention. And she was like, now, this feels like to me, how many words are there? And I pulled out that old list that we used to use. You remember the one that had the primer, and I was like, oh my gosh. Which I know we have that many words, but it just doesn't feel like it because the way they're spaced out and stuff.
I think it's great, and I think this unit prep is really great because I know that we've all kind of done the decodable and tricky words different this year, but I will put on there, and you know my process, as that I take, if we're learning the letter R or the letter A, I'll take the decodable words, let's say we're in Unit 5, and I'll pick like 3 or 4 words with a short A, and that's what we'll do on that lesson. That way I'm not teaching all of them at once, and I'm just integrating a few at a time. So I think that'll be helpful as we do this next year, as we start again and we start at Unit 1, so that we maybe can all be on the same page in the specific decodable words that we teach. So we'll all kind of be on track. And it has been easy for me this year because I haven't had to do them all at once. It's just a little bit at a time, which I think is helpful for them.
Well, and I'm sure I've told y'all that on the C. Taylor folder on Google Drive, like if you don't want to pull up that digital component that has the words really small every time, I actually have a slideshow with the words, and then I even printed my slideshow out so that I had flashcards. And I like them big. I don't like small flashcards. I like big ones. So.
Yeah.
And I put
Thank you for
like
sharing.
when we teach them and then what unit they are. So I keep them in, like I have everything divided in buckets by the unit, so I keep them in that bucket and pull them out in that 9 weeks.
And I think we all do really great
that
things and all different things, and I think this is gonna be helpful as we start the year next year, especially with a new member of our team coming next year. I think this is gonna be really helpful for her, so that she'll know what's expected, she'll know the assessments, and then this part I think is super important, the prepare to teach. Like she'll be aware of like what she might need to have, where she needs to go find things, which you don't have to find much, cause it's all here, like Lisa said, but I think this will be especially helpful to her next year as a first year teacher anywhere. So I think it'll be a great tool for her. And for me. I've been doing it a long time, but I sure appreciate something that's right here in front of me.
Well, like you said, like where it says at the bottom, just simple things like, you need to make wiggle cards for these
Yeah.
activities and stuff like that. I mean, that's helpful to know before the day before you teach.
Sure. Okay, anything else? All right, well, may the 4th be with you as you teach Skills 9. All right, thank you, ladies.